Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to writing class for today. We're going to be using some of that information that we gathered on colonial times and comparing and contrasting colonial times to times of today. So we're going to be writing a really good paragraph, and in that paragraph we're going to be incorporating some vocabulary that are signal words that we would use to signal a compare relationship between two things and a contrast relationship between two things. So first of all, if you do not have paper and pencil, you're going to need that. So go ahead and pause the video and go and get you some paper and pencil, because you're going to be taking notes on what those words are, and you're also going to be writing your own paragraph. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, so first of all, if we are talking about a compare relationship, we're telling how two things are alike. So for example, I've got a list of compare words that I would like for you to write down. When we're comparing two things, we're telling how they are alike. So some signal words we might want to incorporate into our writing, or some signal words that a writer might put in their writing for us to understand that this is a compare relationship, would be same, similar, in the same way, both, like, in common, as well, and also. So these are a few compare words that we can put into our writing and or that we may see in writing so that we know that it's a compare relationship happening. Some contrast words in a nonfiction text that the author may use would be differ, different, however, but, like, although, even though, and while. And if you have a hard time writing these down, just pause the video, write them down, then hit play, and that way you won't get behind. But a contrast relationship is showing how two things are different. So for example, one thing that I was thinking of is I know that fish and whale are alike, but they're also different. Some ways that they are alike would be that they both live in the ocean. So if I was writing a sentence about this, I was writing a little paragraph on them, I would say some ways that a whale and a shark are alike would be that they both live in the ocean and they both need salt water to survive. A difference, a contrast relationship, is that I know sharks are fish and that whales are mammals. So I could say, however, a shark, I'm going to start my sentence off with however, because I just told you how two things, how they were alike. I'm going to say, however, a shark is a fish and a whale is a mammal. They are different because a shark will have gills and a whale will have lungs. Okay, so that's us practicing using some of these words. So now I want you to get out that chart that you have where you wrote down what it was like to live in colonial times versus what it was like to live today. So we have some things from our reading that we had, the links that if you were to live in colonial times, those links gave you information. I gave you information. There was information in Jamestown, the Jamestown packet as well. So those are some resources that we're going to use to write a compare contrast paragraph on this topic. So today we're going to talk about our writing. We want to, in our writing, this is what we have to incorporate. I'm going to write this down. This is what I want to see in the paragraph. I want to see a good grabber. And we've talked about our grabber sentence in our writing is usually a question. So we're going to start off by asking that question. We're used to doing that in the classroom. We do that a lot. Another thing that I want us to put in there is I want to write at least two comparisons. That means I'm going to tell two ways they are alike. We got to think hard, think deep, decide, what would be two ways that my life is like the people in colonial times. And I want two contrasts, two contrasting relationships. So we're going to put two contrasts, and then we're going to write our closing sentence. Okay, and this should be kind of something you're used to. We write all the time in class. So this is what I'm looking for: a grabber, two comparisons, two contrasts, and a closing sentence. Okay. So we have our notes where we've written down our compare and contrast words. So if I'm writing two, I don't want to use the same two comparison words. I've got to choose two words off of here, one for one sentence, one for the next comparison. And then I'm going to choose two off of my contrast list. Okay, two words off of this list to make two sentences. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start out with our grabber. Now, I'm going to write a paragraph with you. You are welcome to write this paragraph down too. In fact, I encourage you so that you can stay in the practice of taking notes. But after this is over, I want you to write your own paragraph. Practice writing your own paragraph. It is really important that you learn to fight through that writing process. Sometimes when you feel uncomfortable, that's when sometimes the best writing comes about. So first of all, I have my notebook paper, okay? We know that we have this red line here. The first sentence is going to be an indented sentence. We're going to do an indentation here. So that means, remember, we come over and we start that first sentence with a capital letter. I can't see you, but I know you're going to do the right thing, even when no one's watching. Please, please, please. Okay, so I'm going to do an invention. I wish. Indentation. So my grabber that I created was, have you ever thought about what it would be like to live in colonial times? That's me drawing that reader in. So have you ever thought, I'm going to write that down, have you ever thought about what it would be like to live in colonial times? And I end it with a question mark because it is a question. Okay, so here you'll see that I've written this down. You can pause it and see it. And then I've done an indentation, but my next sentence does not follow that indentation pattern. It goes back to the red line. My next sentence will not start here. It's going to be a continuation because this is a paragraph. We're just going to continue writing. So the first thing that I'm going to write would be my two comparisons. Okay. So the two things that I was kind of brainstorming, thinking about how are these two alike? I was looking for my sheet. How are these two, life back then and life now, how are they alike? Okay. So one thing that I thought about was that we still eat some of the same foods. We still eat some of the same foods. We still eat vegetables. We still eat corn. Now, how we get those items may be different, but we still have those items in our diet. Another thing that I was thinking about using was that since we live in an area that hunting happens, that we are aware of what hunting is, and we see people hunt in this area all the time. So I was going to incorporate that in colonial times, people had to hunt for their meat. And in current time, in present day, people still hunt for meat. Another thing that we are going to do is write two contrasting relationships. So I was thinking about back then, I couldn't go to a store to buy my clothes. I had to actually make my clothes. I would be in trouble. I can sew, but I cannot sew probably to a pattern like that. So I would be in trouble. I would have to pay for somebody to make my clothes, I guess. So we're going to talk about that. Back then you had to make your clothes, but today you just go to the store and you buy them. Another contrasting relationship that I thought about, I started thinking about that school category. With that school category, kids, all kids of the same age in the same room, that would be very interesting, very difficult as a teacher. You're teaching maybe a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old all in the same room in that schoolhouse. So that would be a little bit different as well. Not just a little bit, that would be a lot different. So I'm going to look at my compare and my contrast. So let's write the contrasting first. So I'm going to say one way that colonial times it would be different. So I'm going to choose the word different. One way that colonial times would be different than present day or present times would be that you would have to make your own clothes. So I'm going to write this down. One way that colonial times and present day would be, and there's my signal word, different. One way that colonial times and present day would be different is that in colonial times, I would have to make my own clothes. Okay? I don't like it saying I. I want to make it you. So I'm going to go in. I reread my sentence and I said, I don't like the way that I sounds. I want to make it speaking to the reader instead because I've asked them that question. One way that colonial times and present day would be different is that in colonial times, you would have to make your own clothes. So I'm going to take out I and make that you. And that's what good readers do. We go in, we reread it, we don't like something, we take it out, we change it. That's part of the writing process. Own clothes. Okay, so I use different. I'm going to hold that up so you can look at it. You can pause it if you need to. Okay, so now I'm going to choose another sentence to put it in there. So our other difference is that we want to include that kids of different ages would be in the same room at school. Okay, so I'm going to say another way, I'm going to use that word differ. I just like it. Another way they would differ would be, another way they would differ, I like that word, would be that in colonial times, kids would, we'll say kids of all ages. I miss having you guys here to help me create these sentences. I like to hear your ideas too. Kids of all ages would be in the same classroom at school. My heart just got a little sad. I do miss having you during my writing time. You guys give me the best sentences of all. We make the best pieces of writing together. So my heart just got a little sad. I miss you guys. Okay, so now let's talk about our comparison. Let me hold that up for you. So let's read what we have so far. I'm liking this writing. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to live in colonial times? I need to put an S. One way that colonial times and present day would be different is that in colonial times you would have to make your own clothes. Another way they would differ would be that in colonial times, kids of all ages would be in the same classroom at school. So now we're shifting gears and we're going to tell how they are alike. Okay, so I'm going to look at my list. Let's see, what do I want to use? One way that they are similar, I like that word similar, or we could even change similar and make it similarity. So we could say one similarity that they both share is that, I think I like that word similarity. So we could say one similarity that they both have, or you could say share, is that in both time periods, present day and back then, people hunt for meat. Okay, so I said one similarity that they both have is that in both time periods, people hunt for meat. You can pause it if you need to. Okay, so now let's do one more. We have our compare list. So we could say also they both, so we would get two more signal words. Also they both, in both time periods, we eat the same types of vegetables like corn. We could put that in there. So we could say also in both time periods, we still eat the, change it a little bit, same vegetables like corn. Let's put a little another contrast in there. Also, in both time periods, we still eat the same vegetables like corn. Contrast. But the way we get them may be different. Because I know some people still have gardens, but a lot of people just go to the grocery store. So I'm going to say, but the way we get them has changed or may be different. But the way we get them has changed. Let's say for some people, because like we said, some people still have gardens. For some people, right? My granddaddy still has a garden. We always want his stuff, right, coming from his garden. So there are still people that have it. So we don't want to say everybody because we know. So we say for some people. And now my closing sentence can be something very simple. These are a few ways of how life in colonial times and present day are alike and different. Okay, so that would be something I would write down. These are a few ways that colonial times and present day are alike and different. Okay, so there it is. There's our writing. And we can make a title for this. What we should say something maybe like colonial times versus present day, so that our reader knows, hey, this is what this article's about. Colonial times versus present day. And there's our writing. So what I want you to do, this is what I had written down. I want you to think of two ways, not the ones I've written up here, two ways that you can figure out that they are the same, colonial times to present day, and two more ways that they are different. That one should be extremely easy. And you're going to create a grabber. You're going to write two contrasting sentences. Each one needs to contain one of these words. Two comparisons. Each one needs to contain one of these words. And then you're going to write your closing statement. So I hope you guys are having a great week. We survived our first week of distance learning. I am so encouraged and I am so proud of you guys that you are doing the work. You're getting on Edmodo. You are watching the videos. You're doing the work even though I'm not there. And I am just so incredibly proud of every single one of you. I miss you terribly. I'm going to cry. But you guys are keep working, keep pushing yourself. Make yourself get up every day and do just a little bit of reading, a little bit of math. There's not a ton of work in those packets, but get on iExcel, get on Epic, find you a book to read. Maybe go out on your patio and read a book. Just make sure that you're doing something every day to get a little bit better than you were the day before. I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.